Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. For those of you here for the first time, my name is Melissa Reed and I am a mixed media artist from Pennsylvania. So today I am working on a canvas simply because I am out of my little boards. I typically like to use those 8" by 8" cradled panels that I get from Amazon, but I am out of them at the moment and did not really have enough time to wait for them to be shipped for this video, so I am rolling with a um, gallery wrapped canvas from Michaels. I think this is it's an 8 by 10. And I did not prime it because those ones already come pre-primed, so I just went ahead and started right in with the collage. So what I'm using there is an old hymnal that I bought at a thrift shop. And sometimes what I do is instead of using just a roll-off sheet that I'm going to throw away, when I am making my gel prints, I go ahead and roll the brayers onto like either book pages or music sheets, and then I can use them in future collages. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm not even really necessarily sure what colors I'm going to end up using for this piece, and it doesn't really matter. Some of this pink may show through and some of it will definitely be covered up, but I have a good variety of things going on in the background here on those different music sheets. So what I'm using to adhere that down is my matte gel medium, and as you probably already know if you've watched any of my other videos, that is typically what I always use as a glue. I like that better than the gloss gel because it does not impart any sort of glossiness whatsoever, and I can make that decision in the end if I do decide to spray it. So once I got all of those music sheets adhered down to the canvas there, I had printed up a while back some numbers just on some tissue paper, and these were made out of stencils that I believe I got on Amazon, and they're the kind of stencils that you can get in any kind of office supply store. I think Target sells them, but I definitely ordered mine off of Amazon. And I'm just adding those down as another layer of interest to the background there. There's no significance to them. They are random in every way you could imagine. I just actually even randomly cut out the sequences of numbers. So there's like 2 in the first one, 1, and then 2, and then 3. And then I just arranged them as I was gluing them down in a way that looked pleasing to me. I am an intuitive artist as well, as I've mentioned before, which basically just means I start working on something without too much of an idea in my mind, and I just react to whatever's on the canvas or whatever feels like it is right for that piece in the moment. And that's what I'm doing right here. I'd been meaning to use numbers in a collage, and I thought this is the week for it because I had some handy. I also bought at my local Joann's, which of course we all know is going out of business, and that's terribly sad. But I was able to get a set of number and letter stamps, very inexpensive. I'm sure you could order something similar off of Amazon or get it at Michael's or any other craft store, really. They're just little, simple number stamps, very small, and I printed up some of those too. I'm not going to end up using those in this piece, but they will definitely come in handy in another piece. The only thing to remember with the stamps is you have to keep in mind that they're going to pull from the jelly plate in reverse, so that's just something to keep in mind. All right, so once I've got the numbers down there, I didn't even necessarily let that dry the whole way because I didn't have to for this step. I'm mixing up a nice cream color with nickel azo gold and titanium white. It makes this beautiful creamy off-white kind of warm tone there. And I am actually taking that over the whole entire piece. I am not doing a very thorough job of covering it. I'm letting some areas be completely bare and some of them are covered a little heavier than others. And then my next step here is to come in with a water bottle, and I'm going to spray off the areas mostly where the numbers are, and a little bit just to let some of the text and music notes come through from the hymnal as well. So I wanted to do that so that the numbers weren't just sitting right there on the top, and it kind of makes it look like they are receding into the background a little and they become more a part of the collage than just a thing that is glued down on top, if that makes any sense. So I went in with my hairdryer just to speed up the process, and I left this part in. I usually edit that out, but I'm also dabbing at some of that with my shop towel there, which is taking off a little bit more paint in certain areas and also kind of leaving a little bit of texture because I had the towel wadded up. And it does end up that I took off a little more paint than I wanted to there. So since I have some left on my plate, I go back in with my brush and just add it in and kind of just do that little dance between too much and not enough and get it to the point where it looks right to me in the moment, which is all part of my intuitive style. Because I work intuitively and don't go into a piece typically with much of an idea in mind, when I'm doing these parts of the piece that maybe take a little time and allow my mind to wander, like the drawing process and things like that, I'll start thinking about a next step and exactly what I might want to do just for that. And I saw this bottle of Liquitex fluid. I believe that is primary red there. And I just put a tiny little bit down and I'm putting it on a sponge brush. I am just very lightly dragging that over the top, and it's picking up some of the texture from the collage paper underneath, just where the seams are. And there were a few bubbles that in the paper that I was not able to smooth down all the way. And it's just, again, adding a little bit more texture, another layer of interest to the overall design. I liked the way the primary red looked to a degree, but it was a little brighter than I necessarily wanted it to be, wanted the piece to be. Sometimes I really like, excuse me, using the very bright colors, and I will do entire pieces using just fluorescent acrylics. But for this one, it just felt like it needed to be a little more subdued. So after I add in more of this red, I decide to get my shop towel back out, spray it down just to mute it a little bit, and take some of that paint back off of the canvas. But then I also decided that I wanted to warm it up a little bit more. So I'm pulling out more of my nickel azo gold there and going in just with the same brush because I want the colors to mix a little bit. And it's just adding a nice warmth there. Plus, because I used that to make the cream color, that's going to work really well with the color that's already down there because I'm using the same color, just mixed differently. I'm already liking it much better now with the warm tones of the azo gold mixing with that primary red. And again, while I have some time here, I've got my blending brush out there and I'm just kind of blending that gold into the background there. I'm kind of trying to think of what my next step might be. Sometimes it comes to me immediately when I look at it and think, oh, okay, it needs this color or this shape or maybe a little more balance on one side, but sometimes it doesn't come to me right away, and that is always the point at which I stop and walk away from it for a while. It just so happened that that was all the time that I had to work on it right then too, so that worked out really well. But I will let these sit for, sometimes just a part of an hour, sometimes several hours, sometimes overnight. Honestly, I used to have 5 or 6 different pieces rolling all at once, well before my YouTube channel when I was just painting just to paint. And when I would get stuck on one, I would just start another background and just keep going because at some point something is going to speak to you. And if there was a day when I was feeling creative, I would just go in and look at what I had started and something would jump out at me and I would go from there. So I did leave that sit for several hours and I decided that I wanted to put a little bit of texture up in that lighter spot there, and I'm just using that same azo gold. I want this to be, fairly harmonious in color there, nothing too contrasting. That would have stood out in a way that I didn't feel was going to be appropriate for this piece, so I just wanted to have everything very harmonized there with the color. Here I'm just not wasting that paint that I put down on the paper, and I added a couple drops of my matte gel liquid just to spread it out a little bit further, and I'm just brayering that over that paper, which I can then use in a future collage. So I decided to add some more flowers to this. Flowers are one of my favorite themes in my work. If you have been with me before, you will know this. Birds and flowers are recurring themes, and I did a piece similar to this a couple of weeks ago. I will link that in the end if you want to take a look at it. I've been really enjoying the way that this Bombay ink works on the surface of my collages, my mixed media pieces, and I like to just do these very simple flower shapes here, nothing too complex, and I'll put the first layer down and then I go ahead and go back over it again just to make it extra sketchy looking, which is the feel that I wanted for this. I'm working in threes because odd numbers always look best visually. That's a little art trick there for you. And so I'm putting the two flowers over there on the left, and I'm going to be adding another one on the right hand side down at the bottom there. And again, there's no significance to the numbers, there's no significance to the flowers. It's all just what I felt looked the way that I wanted it to look in that moment. Incidentally, if you are going to use this ink, it works best on top of either acrylic paint or matte medium or primer, gesso, something. I tested it out on one of my wooden boards, and what happened was when I used it without a primer or any kind of coating on the top, the ink really bled into the board, and that's not what I wanted to happen. So I when I was using that one, I put a coat of the matte medium down. You could use clear gesso if you want to keep the background plain, or just regular gesso, or do like I did here and work on top of acrylic paint or an acrylic medium. So once again here, I'm trying to think of what the next step is going to be, and I decided I didn't want to add anything else to the main point, but I did take a piece of very dark charcoal and I'm outlining all of the edges there, and I'll go ahead after that's done and actually use my matte black paint and a sponge roller and paint down the sides of the canvas. That's how I typically finish a lot of my pieces. But for this, I'm just laying down some of that charcoal right along the edge and taking my finger and smoothing it out. It just gives it a nice finished look that I really enjoy with my pieces. And here is the finished piece for you. I'll give you a good look at it here. These are a lot of fun to make. Like I said, I'm on this kick with the Bombay ink over top of the acrylic paint and collage. Just really liking the way it looks. So you may see more of these in the future, or I may get it out of my system and try something else new. But I hope you liked this today. And if you did, give me a thumbs up. And thank you to everyone who's subscribed. If you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and hit that button. And also remember to hit the bell notification button. That's going to let you know when I put out a new video, which is every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. But I can't wait to come back next week with another piece for you. Have a wonderful day.